Welcome back, and we are now at part 2 of this week's new comics, bitches! So, moving along. Okay, so Batwing, number 9. Again, this is a book that just continues to defy my expectations that it will somehow end up sucking, and it hasn't. It's been exactly the opposite. This has been a book that's actually been going really strong for me. If you're hearing that, by the way, that kind of whine, I don't know why the fan on my computer, I think it needs to be replaced or something, or whatever. Just so much shit has to stop running in the background or something. Anyway, so basically, we have, the Court of Owls is in session, and Lucius Fox is on trial. Now, Lucius Fox, obviously, if you don't know him from the Nolan Batman films, has obviously a long time been a friend of Bruce Wayne. He's basically been the guy who runs Wayne Enterprises for Bruce. He's kind of the guy that helps to build gadgets and stuff like that for Batman Incorporated. And so what we have here is basically David and his buddy and Lucius are at this kind of international gala for Batman Incorporated, and they run into the ambassador of their country, who they consider to be a warlord and everything like that. But there is but then Lucius makes the point, well, this guy, he did actually bring stability to that area, so maybe it's not such a bad thing. Politics is about compromise and so forth. But of course, the Court of Owls being, they just fly right in, and everybody's under attack all of a sudden. Particularly Lucius. Batwing suits up, and they're talking about the Court of Owls is talking earlier on about this one Talon who is a little bit too much of a destructive force, and not quite as much of like the sneaky, kind of creepy assassins that they normally employ. And I'm assuming that the owl that's featured in this issue is supposed to be that person. I'm sorry, my computer, it must be running like a virus scan or something like that. Anyway, so Batwing steps in, and he's trying out some new armaments that Lucius has fitted him out with. Made some improvements to his armament, and basically, and then he has his buddy, and I can never remember the guy's name. I feel bad about that, but he's kind of like if this were he's basically kind of like he's basically like giving him intel over his headset on what exactly, because the call has gone out again. This is all leading back into Batman and Snyder's Court of Owls. This whole big crossover. Again, the call from Alfred has come out to all members of the Bat family, and so he's feeding him intel on the Talons and basically how they can be stopped. Basically either extreme cold or extreme tissue damage. So basically use these bombs that are designed to blow locks to basically blow off the arms of one of the Talons, who's actually holding this this prime minister of their country hostage, so that they'll bring out Lucius Fox. So it was actually kind of, it could have been almost kind of a win-win for Batwing, but again, since he's not, the child warrior that he once was, and, believes, he knows that redemption has to come at a price, ultimately, even if it's working against what he believes to be right. So he saves him, saves the day, or at least for the minute, anyway, because we know shit's still going to come down pretty hard on these guys. But again, just a really, really solid issue from Judd Winnick. Marcus Toe still doing the or two, however you pronounce it, still doing the art. He's no Ben Oliver, but he's still pretty damn good. So this is a very solid 4 out of 5 for Batman number 9. So continuing along with DC, we've got Smallville, Season 11, number 1. So again, we have this this idea of bringing television programs that were very popular, that have basically run their course, out of the television and onto the page. Now, in this particular case, the page happens to be it's a digital comic, and it has, every week there's a new chapter, and it's 99 cents to download it. But I knew that they were going to be doing a print version, so I figured, fuck it, I'm just going to wait until the print version comes out, and now I have that, and I adore it. I love it, because we've got Brian Q. Miller, who was, of course, he wrote Batgirl when it was Stephanie Brown was Batgirl, and but he was also a writer for a long time on Smallville, so he really knows these characters inside and out, with, of course, Clark, Lois, Lex, Chloe, Oliver, and, so he knows these beats pretty intimately. And that's great. I mean, it's great to have a writer of the show actually, and is also a writer of comics doing this comic. So, we basically, we have some troubles going on in space. We have, Lex trying to basically, get the military to accept some weaponized tech that will also basically, this Guardian tech that will essentially protect Earth, because we know that we just had this alien invasion, and, what is Superman if he's not an alien? And what does that kind of power do if it's unchecked? Of course, that's Lex's whole purpose, is to keep Superman at bay. But of course, this takes place after the finale of the show, the series finale, and of course Lex has lost his memory after being rebuilt, brought back to life, and Lex no longer has his memory of Clark Kent being Superman. And he's starting to see some ghosts, because we have a little bit of Tess here, who died somewhat ignominiously in the finale. And that was kind of sad that I didn't think that her character got the proper send-off that she deserved. But Brian's at least resurrected her for the time being. Whether or not it is an actual ghost or just a manifestation of Lex's memories kind of resurfacing, because it was Lex that ultimately killed her. And then we have, Green Arrow and Superman teaming up to stop some baddies. Basically, it's everything that the show was, because we have all the great little character bits. I love how Brian writes Lois. I love how he writes Clark. I love how he writes Oliver. I love how he writes Chloe. Basically, the voices are still very distinct, and the whole issue, these 4 chapters, if you will, read like a really good episode of the show. So it's very dense, nice, good, dense read, and I just think they did a really nice job with this. So a really solid 4 out of 5 for Smallville number 1. We'll just call it number 1. Animal Man number 9. Finally, we're kind of back to Animal Man's kind of fighting weight, if you will. Not quite all the way there, but pretty much. Jeff Pugh returning to do art. I don't know what Travel Foreman is doing otherwise, if he's just off the title for a little while, or if he's off like forever, which would suck, because I love Travel Foreman's art. But, basically we have, it begins with this really awesome reference to Grant Morrison's run on Animal Man many, many, many years ago. And, with Buddy's family being murdered, and, his creator basically stepping, into the comic itself to talk to him about why he put him through all of this. And, basically what ultimately is going on is that Buddy is in the red, because at least his consciousness is anyway, because his body has been taken over by one of the beings of the rot. And so, bad news there. So we've got, and Buddy is being led around by this shepherd. Basically, he's being kind of treated like a hostile, but, he lets them know that basically, Maxine, his daughter, is the avatar of the red. So, that's got to be worth something around here, right? And this shepherd that's leading him around has a little, like, skeletal, like Mina bird or something like that. And when he says that he calls himself Animal Man, it squawks redundant blondie, and that was really it was really funny. But basically we've got combat going on within and without the red, because as Buddy's kind of ferrying his way towards meeting kind of the powers that be within the red, we have everything that's going on outside, which is that, like I said, Buddy's been taken over. His family is, kind of on the run. Maxine is very, deeply feeling Buddy's absence, and that he's, that something is definitely wrong. And, so it's very distinct how Maxine really is what Buddy, maybe was supposed to be. Or maybe Buddy was actually, he was supposed to give birth, that, Maxine, being his, product of his genetic makeup, is ultimately kind of like the next step of Buddy's, of the Baker family's evolution towards the red. I know I might be kind of over-sciencifying it, and I know that's not a word, but it still makes for a really interesting read. And, of course, at the end here, I'm not going to spoil it, but we have an appearance from a certain trench coat wearing, chain smoking, blonde haired twat, as my brethren across the water would say. So that was a nice little moment there at the end. But again, it's like Lemire really feels like he's on his game here. There's not so much talk about. There is, of course, mention still of Animal Man, of the family having to make their way towards Swamp Thing, and that's become something of an afterthought for me, because we know that's where that's where they're going, and we know that can't happen until this this arc is completed, and Swamp Thing's arc is completed. So that's going nowhere for right now. So we're just going to stay in the present where we are with what's happening, so that it doesn't feel like, okay, we need to get to Alec Holland, we need to get to Alec Holland. Okay, we get it. Stop forcing it down our throats. And essentially, Lemire kind of lays off of that for a while, which is very smart. And Steve Pugh's art is really actually growing on me here. Like I said, I didn't think that it really worked before, but it's really starting to work for me now. Maybe it's just his style seems to be actually really appropriate to this. And also, I think it was because earlier, there was a mix of seeing like Travel Foreman's art and Steve Pugh's art in the same issue, and I could really tell when it diverged from one another, and it just didn't work. So, I don't know. So, but again, I just think that the storytelling is a lot clearer. The art's a lot more, not linear, but there's more of a. It just looks better. So I mean, a very solid 4.5 out of 5 for Animal Man #9. Still, I'm really glad that this book is getting back on track, because I felt like it was really losing pace for a couple issues now. So anyway, we'll be back, and we're going to talk about more comics. So stay tuned.